Were ITZY's older songs actually better? When I was in the beginning stages of this series, I knew that I wanted to address the ITZY flopped narrative. Many people point to a specific time in their career as the turn for the worse. However, we explored in our timeline, and more specifically in our previous episode, that at least sales-wise, that wasn't the case. If anything, they still had room to climb higher. So rather than just relying on nostalgia or internet discourse, I wanted to go back and listen to everything again with fresh ears to truly see if it wasn't the sales numbers, maybe it was a dip in musical quality. In this part, we'll be covering every release from It's Different all the way through Crazy in Love, what many fans consider ITZY's golden age. I will mostly be sharing my opinion since we've already covered the data in episode 1. Then, in part 2, we'll pick up with Checkmate, the moment people say everything changed. Hey guys, welcome back to Summers with Wade. I really hope you're enjoying the video so far, in particular my ITZY series. I've poured so much time and love into these videos and I really hope that comes across. So we got a long one today, so grab a snack and let's once again go back to where it all began. It's Different. The release that started it all. Personally for me, I think Dala Dala, Dala Dala. I saw the pronunciation comments, guys, okay? Like, I don't know what you want me to do about it. Like, I say a Dala Dala, like, but I'm pronouncing the D, but I don't know what to say. For me, it remains one of the strongest debut songs of the fourth generation. Lyrically, the track celebrates being unapologetically unique, refusing to conform to other people's expectations, and ignoring the haters while embracing exactly who you are. Rather than asking for approval, ITZY debuted saying, "This is who we are, take it or leave it." Looking back, it's kind of incredible how much of the group's identity was already established in their very first title track. Musically, it was just as bold. The blend of EDM, hip-hop, and bright dance pop felt fresh at the time, and while the song's structure was a bit more unconventional, that unpredictability became part of its charm. Combined with the iconic choreography and infectious energy, this song immediately separated ITZY from their peers and gave them one of the most memorable debuts of their generation. Their B-side, Want It, was also a fantastic introduction. It might surprise some of you given my recent reviews, but I genuinely really like this song. Maybe part of it is nostalgia, but I also think it captures the innocence and hunger the girls had throughout their debut year. What's funny is that in hindsight, the lyrics almost feel prophetic. Even though they had literally just debuted, the song revolves around people wanting what ITZY has, their confidence, their style, their energy. Considering how quickly they exploded in popularity, it almost feels like they were predicting their own success. Overall, I think It's Different accomplished exactly what a debut should. It introduced the members, established a clear musical identity, and gave us a concept that felt genuinely different from what everyone else was doing at the time. More importantly, it laid the foundation for the next few years of ITZY's career. That message of confidence, self-love, and individuality would become the group's defining characteristic, and whether you loved it or not, you always knew exactly what ITZY stood for. Looking back now, it's easy to see why this debut made such an impact. It wasn't just a strong first impression, it was the blueprint for everything that followed. It's icy. Hey! Following one of the biggest debuts of the year was never gonna be easy, but I actually think ITZY was a really smart follow-up. Instead of abandoning the confidence and self-love themes introduced in Dala Dala, ITZY doubled down on them. This time, they wrapped the message in a bright, colorful summer package. The lyrics describe being icy on the outside while carrying an unshakable passion and determination within. Once again, the girls are completely unfazed by other people's opinions, choosing instead to focus on chasing their dreams. Looking back, it really reinforces what I mentioned earlier about the hunger they had during their rookie years. They weren't just confident, they genuinely believed that they were destined for something bigger. Musically, ITZY captured everything I love about early ITZY. It was loud, energetic, a little chaotic, and ridiculously catchy. Even though the themes were very similar, it never felt repetitive to me. The bright production and playful summer aesthetic gave it its own identity. I absolutely loved this song growing up, and while I don't revisit it quite as often now, I still think it holds up as one of their strongest earlier title tracks. The B-side Cherry continues that same confident attitude but approaches it from a different angle. Using the cherry as a metaphor for the sweetest, most desirable part of a dessert, ITZY positions themselves as the prize everyone wants but not everyone can have. It's playful, charismatic, and fits perfectly with the group's early image. That being said, revisiting their discography for this series has made me realize that not every song has aged equally well. Cherry is probably one of the few where I can immediately tell it came from 2019. It's still fun, but some of the production and stylistic choices definitely feel like a product of their time. Closing out the album is It's Summer, which offers a refreshing change of pace. Rather than focusing on confidence and proving themselves, the song embraces the carefree feeling of summer, encouraging listeners to live in the moment and enjoy the freedom that comes with it. I loved this song when I was younger, but I actually appreciate it even more now. Listening to it as an adult during the summertime with many of the freedoms I once dreamed about gives the song a completely different kind of nostalgia. Overall, ITZY proved that Dala Dala wasn't a one-off success and showed ITZY could take their core message of confidence and present it in different ways without losing what made them special. It may not have been as groundbreaking as their debut, but it cemented ITZY as one of the defining rookie groups of 2019. It's Me. Their first mini-album, and what an explosive success it was. At this point, Wannabe honestly needs no introduction. The song took everything people loved about ITZY and refined it into what many would consider their signature track. Lyrically, it continues the group's message of individuality and self-confidence, encouraging listeners to stop living by other people's expectations, instead embracing who they truly are. It didn't reinvent ITZY's identity, it doubled down on it. And judging by the response, that was absolutely the right decision. I love this song so much, don't get me wrong. I literally had bruises on my legs throughout 2020 trying to learn their choreography. But looking back, I'm actually kind of shocked it became the ITZY song. The music video was iconic and Ryujin's shoulder dance became one of the most recognizable dance moves in K-pop, but if you strip all that away, the song itself is actually a fairly standard early ITZY track. That's not a criticism at all, it just shows you how much presentation and timing can elevate an already great song into something legendary. One of my favorite B-sides is Ting Ting Ting. This was honestly what I expected clubs to be playing. It's fun, sleek, and noticeably more mature than their previous work without feeling like they're trying too hard to age themselves up. Lyrically, it's about letting go of your worries and completely losing yourself on the dance floor. And musically, I love that they leaned into a deeper house sound. It was a nice reminder that even early on, ITZY wasn't afraid to experiment with different genres while still sounding unmistakably like themselves. The album also gave us That's a No-No, which has found a surprising second life online in recent years. Centered around rejecting negativity and refusing to let other people's opinions, quote, kill my vibe, it fits perfectly alongside the album's overarching message of self-confidence. Honestly, seeing it go viral years later didn't surprise me as much as I thought it would. Between the choreography and the song's unapologetic attitude, it feels oddly timeless. I do have to be honest though, outside of those standout moments, this album never fully clicked with me. Nobody Like You, You Make Me, and I Don't Wanna Dance all serve an important role in balancing the album's pacing, but they've never been songs I actively return to. Nobody Like You and You Make Me have a few vocal moments that feel a little grating to me, and I Don't Wanna Dance almost feels like a companion piece to Ting 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 without quite reaching the same level of polish. That being said, 24 Hours has aged surprisingly well for me. Even with all the chanting, which you guys know I'm usually pretty critical of, there's something incredibly infectious about it. Looking back, I can't help but think this song walked so Chaeryeong's iconic ITZY could run. Overall, It's Me represents the end of ITZY's rookie era and the beginning of their dominance. It refined everything that made the group successful without abandoning the identity they spent the previous year building. While not every B-side landed for me personally, Wannabe alone became one of the defining songs of the fourth generation, and it's hard to imagine ITZY's legacy without it. So this wasn't just another comeback, it was the moment ITZY became ITZY. Not Shy. ITZY! Speaking of iconic, we have the Not Shy mini-album. This release was special for me for a few reasons. It was the first project to move away from the ITZY naming convention, signaling that the group was entering a new chapter. It was also the first ITZY album I ever bought, so there's definitely a healthy dose of nostalgia attached to it. But even setting that aside, I genuinely think this is where ITZY began proving they could evolve without losing the identity they'd spent the last year and a half building. The title track, Not Shy, took the group's trademark confidence and applied it to a completely different topic. Instead of singing about self-love or ignoring the haters, This time, the members confidently pursued someone they liked, refusing to be shy about their feelings. It was a subtle but important shift. The members were getting older, and this comeback opened the door for ITZY to explore more diverse themes while still staying true to the fearless attitude that defined them. Everything about this era felt like an event. Following the massive success of Wannabe was never going to be easy, but for me, this comeback absolutely delivered. The B-sides also deserve a lot of credit. Don't Give a What and Louder continue the group's message of confidence, but from different perspectives. One brushes off criticism entirely, while the other encourages listeners to proudly and unapologetically express themselves. Then you have tracks like ID, Surf, and Be in Love, which tie back to the title track's themes while offering a much softer side of ITZY than we'd seen before. I really appreciate how this album diversified not only the topics they covered, but also the overall soundscape. It balanced explosive high-energy tracks with more relaxed and emotional moments, making the album feel much more dynamic from start to finish. I think this might actually be one of my favorite eras. At the time, ITZY could genuinely do no wrong in my eyes. I even had this album on repeat for months, not just because I loved it, but because I physically owned it. My car at the time didn't have Bluetooth or an aux cord, just a CD player, so Not Shy, Eyes Wide Open, Love Synonym Part 2, and a handful of other albums basically became the soundtrack to my life. Revisiting it now, I still think Not Shy is one of ITZY's most complete projects. It successfully matured their concept, expanded their musical palette, and proved they weren't going to be boxed into only singing about one idea. More than anything, it showed that confidence wasn't just ITZY's concept, it was their lens. Whether they were talking about self-love, chasing their dreams, or confessing to someone they liked, they approached the topic with the same unapologetic conviction. And for me, that's what makes this era hold up so well. Guess Who? I'll be honest, I was a little nervous when the teasers for In the Morning first started dropping. Coming off Not Shy, I was worried they were about to pivot into the same dark girl crush concept that seemed to be everywhere at the time. As it turns out, the only thing I should have been worried about was my knees. If learning the choreography for Wannabe and Not Shy nearly took me out, this one absolutely finished the job. Looking back though, I think that's exactly what made this era so memorable for me. In the Morning takes the popular party game Mafia and transforms it into a metaphor for secretly stealing someone's heart. Rather than openly confessing their feelings like they did in Not Shy, this time they're playing a game of deception, carefully hiding their intentions until it's too late. It was a much darker, more mysterious concept, but underneath it all was the same confidence ITZY had always embodied. They weren't waiting around to be chosen, they were the ones in control of the game. That confidence carries through the album even as the subject matter shifts more heavily toward love and relationships. Songs like Wild Wild West, Shoot, and Tennis each explore different sides of romance, but they never lose that sense of self-assurance that's become synonymous with the group. At the same time, tracks like Sorry Not Sorry and Kidding Me offer a different perspective. Sorry Not Sorry is essentially an anthem about refusing to apologize for your success and ambition, or the person you've become. Considering everything ITZY had accomplished in just 2 years, it almost felt like they were responding directly to anyone who doubted them. Meanwhile, Kidding Me focuses on recognizing toxic behavior, setting boundaries, and refusing to entertain someone who keeps playing emotional games. Even when the themes changed, the underlying message remained the same: knowing your worth. Out of all the B-sides, Wild Wild West has always stood out to me for a funny reason. It genuinely feels like it belongs on the Not Shy album. Even now, years later, I still occasionally catch myself forgetting which project it actually belongs to because of the Western influences make it fit so well into the previous era. But the undeniable standout for me is Shoot. It's relatively short, but wow does it leave an impression. I remember replaying the CD over and over just to get to it. The auto-tune and the almost hypnotic delivery from the members create a vibe that's incredibly satisfying. Even today, it's probably one of my most played ITZY B-sides. For me, I think Guess Who deserves a lot more credit than it sometimes gets. It proved that ITZY could tackle a darker, trendier concept without completely sacrificing the identity they'd built up. The confidence was still there, it was just expressed in a different way. And somehow, it still felt unmistakably like ITZY for me. I don't know if I could call it their absolute best mini-album, but it's definitely one of my favorites. Crazy in Love. Their first full album. For me, this was a huge moment. Up until this point, ITZY had consistently delivered great mini-albums, so the idea of finally getting a full-length project was incredibly exciting. Looking back now, I think Crazy in Love was a very good time to release their first full album. It didn't reinvent the group, but it expanded on everything they'd established over the previous 2 years and proved they had more to offer than just catchy title tracks. Leading the charge was Loco, and I honestly think it was a fantastic choice. After the darker, more mysterious concept of In the Morning, Loco felt like a return to ITZY's brighter, more explosive energy while still reflecting how much the group had matured. Instead of singing about self-confidence alone, they fully embraced the chaos of falling in love, describing the feeling as something completely irrational and impossible to control. It's loud, colorful, addictive, and exactly the kind of song that gets stuck in your head for days. Between the choreography and the vibrant music video, this comeback immediately became one of my favorites. What I really appreciate, though, is how cohesive the album feels. Love is clearly the central theme, but every song approaches it from a different perspective. So Lucky, Boombox, and Chillin' Chillin' each explore the excitement, comfort, and joy that can come from finding someone special. Even though they're embracing romance more than before, ITZY never loses the confidence that's always defined them. That's where songs like Swipe and Gas Me Up come in. Swipe is basically the ultimate boy bye song, while Gas Me Up demands a partner who can match their energy instead of bringing them down. Even when they're in love, they refuse to sacrifice their self-worth, and I think that's what separates ITZY's love songs from a lot of other groups. One song that's grown on me tremendously over the years is Love Is. When I first heard it, I thought it was a nice addition to the album. Listening to it now as an adult, wow, it hits a lot differently. The song acknowledges that love isn't always simple or straightforward. It can be confusing, uncertain, and sometimes even scary. As I've gotten older and experienced more myself, I find the lyrics much more relatable than I ever did back in 2021. It's one of those songs that seem to age alongside you, revealing new meaning every time you come back to it. That emotional maturity carries beautifully into the closing track Mirror, which remains one of my favorite ITZY songs to this day. While much of the album explores loving someone else, Mirror turns that conversation inward. It's a gentle reminder that learning to love yourself can often be the hardest relationship you'll ever have. I also think it's the perfect way to end this chapter of ITZY's career. Since debut, they've spent years telling us to be confident, to ignore the haters, and to embrace who we are. But Mirror acknowledges something important. Believing those words isn't always easy. Confidence isn't about pretending everything's okay, it's about learning to accept yourself despite your insecurities. And I honestly couldn't think of a better way to close out this first album. Looking back, I think Crazy in Love represents the peak of ITZY's original identity. It takes every theme they'd explored since Dala Dala, confidence, independence, self-love, and now romance, and weaves them together into their most complete project yet. Not every song became a fan or personal favorite, but as an album experience, it feels like the culmination of everything ITZY had worked towards since debut. So, were ITZY's older songs actually better? Honestly, it's not that simple. Going back through these releases, what surprised me the most wasn't that every song was a masterpiece, because they weren't. There are B-sides I still don't connect with, and songs that definitely sound like products of their time. On the other hand, there are songs I've grown to appreciate even more with age. What I realized is that people aren't just nostalgic for the music, I think they're nostalgic for ITZY's identity. From debut through Crazy in Love, for the most part, every comeback felt like a natural continuation of the last. The sound evolved, the members matured, and the themes expanded, but it always felt unmistakably like ITZY. Whether they were singing about self-love, chasing their dreams, falling in love, or accepting themselves, everything was tied together by the same core message: confidence. Of course, nostalgia plays a part too. For me, these songs take me back to learning their choreography, driving around with CDs because my car didn't have an aux cord, and honestly, just growing up alongside the members. But nostalgia alone doesn't explain why these songs were still remembered so fondly. They became classics because they were great songs backed by a group with a crystal clear identity. So if you ask me whether ITZY's older songs were better, I can say some were, but some weren't. I do think their early career was incredibly cohesive. Every comeback felt like another chapter in the same story, and I think that's what most people miss. It wasn't that every release was perfect, it was that every release knew exactly what it wanted to say, even if not everyone saw the vision. Guess who? However, that all changed with their next era. Beginning with Checkmate, ITZY's direction became far more divisive. What for some started with In the Morning only progressed further. The natural evolution they'd spent years building seemed to stall and, for some, even go backwards. For the first time, people started asking whether the group had lost what made them special. Was that criticism incorrect, or did something truly shift for the worse? that's exactly what we'll be covering in part 2, where I'll be revisiting everything from Checkmate onward. Because if part 1 was the story of ITZY finding their identity, then part 2 is the story of what happened after they lost it. So that's all I have for you guys today. I'm sorry I had to split it into 2 parts, but the length was getting just a little too long, and I also have to work on other videos for the channel. So thank you guys so very much for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click that bell icon so you're notified every time I post a video. Tell me in the comments down below, what is your favorite era from their golden age? Mine would probably be a tie between Not Shy and Guess Who. But remember that I love you all so much, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye!